Hey, what's up? What I want to show you is how to find, and really, it's not really about finding a niche, it's about developing a niche. And I'm going to show you how to find or develop your niche so that you can share your knowledge, share your experiences, and share your, wisdom essentially with the world. That way you can make a major contribution and a major impact and attract a tribe of people. And I'm going to show you this. And really, I should be, what I do, as you probably know, is I'm the old school writing guy. I love writing things by hand, doing knowledge development work by hand. And I just finished writing issue number 7 of the Scott Shepherd letter. And yes, I do it by hand. It's the best way to do it. I love the craft of writing, and nothing beats it. And, I make a killer, amazing, fulfilling living by just writing one thing a month and making 6 figures a year doing so. And a key part of that is you have to find a niche, and you have to then develop a tribe in that niche so that you can create a following of essentially fans, an audience, a niche audience, and then turn them into a tribe of super fans. Now, I wrote this out, and I really should be putting this into digital form right now, but you know what? I'm ADHD and I like to go on tangents. So I've just gotten this idea. I've decided to take this concept that I'm going to be sharing in issue number 7 of the Scott Shepherd letter, and I'm going to be teaching it to you on the whiteboard. Now, of course, and here I'll turn it around. Of course, it would be unfair to my subscribers of the Scott Shepherd letter if I told you every single little thing. Plus, I don't think you have the time or patience to go into every single little thing in detail. So I'm not going to share every single little bit, but I'm going to share like the core concept, and this will definitely help you, definitely get you started. So by the end of this, which I'm going to teach you, is you're going to have the ability to actually a little bit more clarity, like essentially a roadmap that you can follow so that you can find your own niche, finally get some momentum, and start building a tribe of people that you actually value. That way, you can get on the path that I'm on, in which I'm an independent writer, creator, solopreneur. I walk into my cozy office, and essentially bust out a newsletter, once a month. And yeah, a lot of the times I spend time, neuro imprinting and writing out by hand, F. Scott Fitzgerald. But I'm not going to get into that. Okay. I'm just going to teach you the concept. So we're going to swing over to the whiteboard. And here, I'm going to set this up right here. And thankfully, a friend of mine actually ordered some legit whiteboard markers. Okay. So you'll probably, be able to see what I'm writing down quite well, which is kind of important if I'm going to be teaching something. Okay, so hopefully that works. Let me grab the whiteboard marker over here. Okay, so before I share the best framework that you can follow for finding and essentially developing your own niche, I want to show you the most trite, basic, and the worst model that you will find if you Google right now. If you Google how to find a niche, you're going to get something like this. It's a Venn diagram of like 3 or 4. Everyone has a little bit of different flavors of this, but it looks like this. This is the worst piece of advice you can follow if you want to find a niche. Okay, here it is. Um, you'll often get a Venn diagram, and it looks like this. It'll be like, okay, what do you know, what do you dot 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 enjoy? And then they'll say over here, there'll be something like what, and then it'll be like, are you good at? You know, like what are you skilled at? Something like that. And then it'll be it'll be like a third little box and say like, is there a market? Is there money in it? Right? Like let's just call that market slash money. Okay, that's the typical piece of advice you will get. And then what they'll say is, obviously, worst piece of advice ever. It'll be like, hey, do this. Problem solved. End of story. Okay. This is the worst piece of advice for finding a niche. The reason is, and I won't get into all the reasons, but one of the reasons is that like it doesn't tell you what order you should start this in. And like every piece of marketing advice out there, like marketing 101, and even by my like mentor and one of my idols, Gary Halbert, they'll tell you to, first find a starving market, like first find a hot market, and then work backwards from there to like create some product, right? And like link these together. Okay. That is a formula for burnout, for unfulfilling work, and for just basically wasting your time chasing money. So the thing is, and what you need to do, and what I'll get into, is you need to nuke this entire convention. Like, fuck this. Okay? Screw it. All right? Then I'm going to erase this. After you nuke this convention, you need to do precisely what I did. I'm going to show you exactly what I did to build the anti-net Zettelkasten movement, which, if you know, I've created essentially a movement around the niche field of PKM, which is personal knowledge management, and note-taking in a space called Zettelkasten. But I went even crazier, even more niche than taking notes. Is I essentially created a movement around the idea of taking notes by hand, the old way, the physical way, the deliberate way, the analog way. Literally, like I have a brain, essentially, a mind built out of note cards over there. And if you've been following me, you already know this, okay? It's an anti-net Zettelkasten. And so I have the smallest niche ever, okay? I only have a few thousand people like in my audience, and of that I have like even a subset, a smaller selection of that. Yet I have been able to turn and transform this small niche into an amazing independent creative living, making six figures, multi six figures a year from this teeny tiny niche, which I essentially make more. There's this guy, I don't want to call him out, but I've been following him for a long time. He's a YouTuber. He has like right now he has like 2.38 million subscribers. Right, this guy, because he follows all of the old models online, like ads and sponsorships and digital courses and all of that bull crap that you see, out there on Twitter. He literally is working at Taco Bell, and my model of this tiny tiny audience makes more money than his. Okay, so what I'm about to teach you, and it just goes to show I know what I'm talking about. I built this movement, and I've built and found my niche by following the method I'm about to teach you. Okay, so here's where it starts. Okay, is here's you. Okay, you are right here, and you're flim-flamming around every other week. This is probably you. You start with a new idea, and you get attracted by some new idea. Maybe you stick to it for like 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, okay, at most. And then another new idea comes, and then you go that direction, and another new idea, that direction, and whatever. What ends up happening is, because you didn't follow what I'm about to teach you, hopefully you can see that. If not, whatever. Um, well, my subscribers will, of my physical monthly newsletter. Um, I promise this won't just be a pitch and a plug for my newsletter, okay? But just kidding, but seriously. No, this is you right now. You're flim-flaming around, you have all these ideas, and what you want to do is this, okay, to find your niche, is you want to jump in and commit to one of them, okay? Screw the idea of there being money in it, screw there being the idea that you have to be good at it, okay? All that doesn't matter. You need to, don't do what all the marketers tell you. Don't try to find a hot market and then work backwards from there, okay? That is a path to, sure, you may have success, like moderate success. And I've done that route, my first 13 years, okay, in like the online entrepreneurship, solopreneurship space. Even if you succeed, you'll have short-term success and then burn out, and then you will quit completely, okay? So that's why what you need to do is you need to jump into what is called the zone of fascination. You need to have the balls, the kahunas. It's the gangster move to say, you know what, screw it. I'm fascinated with PKM, with Zettelkasten. I don't know how the heck I'm going to make money in it, but I'm going to go all in on this. Screw everything else. You need to chase and pursue your fascination. And that is like the advice that a lot of people don't teach. That is what you need to do. So you need to get into your zone of fascination and pursue that muse. You can call it, there's something that will call you. Maybe God will speak to you, okay? Or there's a voice. There's something that pulls you into some direction. You need to chase and follow that muse. Jump into the zone of fascination. Now, when you get into this zone of fascination, what you need to do, the next thing you need to do is you need to find something called a congregation, okay? And a congregation is, okay, and I'm not going to get into, I get into it in issue number 7, but you need to look for a congregation. What you do not want to find and land into is you don't want to find a niche that is like a topic or a field, okay, or even a community. You need something called a congregation, and there's certain things to look for in a congregation, okay? There's like a congregation, for instance, will have its own terminology, its own language. So for me, my congregation was the Reddit Zettelkasten, okay? The Zettelkasten community, or really congregation on Reddit. They have their own terms like Zettels and atomic notes and linking notes and all this other stuff, okay? So when I was in my zone of fascination here, a lot of people think that I just like, jumped in and landed on Zettelkasten, but it wasn't. Like, my zone of fascination was kind of nebulous. It was kind of it was like I was interested in PKM, Obsidian, how to take smart notes by Sankey Arens, and and it was like a nebulous idea, but I just decided to go into my zone of fascination. And when I was in this zone, what I was looking for was the congregation. So I wandered around like all over the place up here in the zone of fascination and went to dead ends, like you know the Reddit note taking community, for instance, is a dead end. That is not a congregation. That is a topic. Okay. And there's other things within this as well. And what I did finally is I found that congregation. So I found the Zettelkasten Reddit. Now, here's the important part. What I did next is when I found the Zettelkasten congregation is I decided and I didn't know everything at the time. Like I didn't even know what a bib card was at this time, or even like I was still confused by Sankey Arens's conceptions of how the Zettelkasten works, which is completely wrong. Like there is no fleeting notes, permanent notes, none of that. Even his literature notes were like completely poorly explained. And so in my first, like, and they're still in there in my own anti-net Zettelkasten, I did my literature notes, like I gave them their own address and I took them horizontally. Like I now know that's completely wrong and false. And here's how I discovered that is because after I found my congregation, which is, r slash Zettelkasten, okay, I then stepped out of this zone and I went back into my fascination zone. And then I went back right here in this little area. And this little area is called the zone of mastery. So I did a bunch of things which really no other sane person would do. And I detail that in issue number 7 of the Scott Shepherd letter. And what I did is I took now that I found a congregation and I knew that there was, okay, some semblance, and there's other signs, there's like 5 signs to look for in a congregation. And so once I found my congregation, the Zettelkasten Reddit, I then said, okay, I'm going to go and I am going to go and master this whole area. And I'm going to go so deep, deeper than anyone has ever gone before, deeper than researchers, just insane stuff. Like you'll see in my early anti-net Zettelkasten videos, I literally translated Nicholas Luhmann's, whole note card archive from German to English and then wrote them out by hand. That's one of the things. There was other things I did as well. And I went so deep and I went deep into the zone of mastery. And there's 3 things which I'm not going to detail here because that's really not fair for my subscribers. But I detail it in issue number 7 of the Scott Shepherd letter, which is coming out next month. And essentially there's three things that you need to go through, okay? And it mirrors this concept, of the hero's journey, okay? And you need to go through three things, and you need to go through, like, essentially, and this is probably unpopular advice, you need to go through hell. This is hard. You need to become a master of this congregation, of the topic that is discussed in this congregation. Then, once you go through the trials, the hell of the zone of mastery, you need to then come back. And so I'll start using a red pen so you can see where I'm at right now. So after you've gone through the zone of mastery and discovery, you then need to loop back and you need to go right here. You need to go back to your congregation. And by the way, this is, that sweet spot, right? The intersection of all three of these circles: the congregation, the zone of fascination, the zone of mastery. And then you need to bring back the wisdom that you have learned, that you've gone way deeper than anyone else could. And you need to start adding a ton of value, replying to every single post, sharing your knowledge, sharing everything, okay? And here's the problem. And this is what I'm kind of showing you is you're going on this like hero's journey, okay? So this is the time when, in, let's say, Lord of the Rings, when Frodo, gets the ring, he's now returning home to his congregation and he's sharing all of his knowledge and wisdom. And what you'll find is, sure, a lot of people will be happy with this, okay? And you'll start attracting your own tribe of people. But you will also be attracting, we'll use blue for this, a ton of critics right here. It's going to cause a lot of controversy when you start coming back and teaching people the true principles and sharing stuff where you've gone deeper than anyone else has gone. And at this point, you then are going to do something that is essentially, and this is where I'm going to cut myself off. I don't want to share this part. This is for my subscribers. But you're going to do something essentially at this phase, and it's like the last phase, where you're going to create your own blue ocean, okay? Your own essentially market of one. And that is essentially it, okay? So really to summarize, what you need to do, the process of finding your own niche, it starts with having the courage. And right here, this takes courage. It is a leap, okay? And if you're a current subscriber of the Scott Shepherd Letter, you know that in issue number 5, I talked about, the three aspects, the three things you need to create a movement. One of which is you need to be a courageous leader, not a charismatic leader, not a cult leader, not someone crazy. You have to have the kahunas to say, screw it, let's do it. I'm jumping into my zone of fascination. I don't care, right? So that's it. You need to jump into your zone of fascination. You then need to go on a whole discovery journey. You're going to find like a lot of different, congregations, but you need to find one that's a fit, okay? And the danger zone is you don't want to, get caught up in a community that is not a congregation. There's five essentially aspects or properties to look for in finding and selecting a congregation, okay? So we'll go back to blue because I'm kind of recapping everything right now. Once you get into the zone of congregation, you then go into the zone of mastery, which is the zone of like hell. And when I say hell, it's not really hell because you are also fascinated with this whole space, right? Because you've chased your fascination. And then you need to bring all that new wisdom back to the congregation. And then it's going to create a lot of controversy, which is a good sign. It means you're on the right track. And then you're going to do something which I call forking, okay? And I'm not going to get into that. That's for my subscribers. But hopefully this gave you a better, more realistic. This is exactly what I did to build my anti-net Zettelkasten movement, okay? So I realize it's not just 3 Venn diagrams, a pretty circle, and hey, you need to do this. No, this is an entire journey. It's an entire sequence, and there's a little bit more to it. But that is something that you ought to follow if you want to find your own niche. It really starts with this. This is the one and only implementation takeaway that you need to worry about. You need to focus on chasing and pursuing your zone of fascination. And the crazier it sounds, the better it is. For me, my zone of fascination was PKM, Obsidian, what is it called? Note taking, Zettelkasten. And I didn't have it all figured out at that point, right? It was through basically developing my fascination and then finding my congregation that things came together. So the only thing you need to worry about is doing the gangster move. And that is saying, no, who cares about the market? Who cares about how much money potential is in it? Who cares if anyone, who cares how small the niche is? Look, my niche is so freaking small and I still make more than a YouTuber with 2.28 million subscribers. Okay, so the method I'm teaching you in this niche method is the route to go. Anyway, hope that helped, and hopefully you even saw this. So uh, anyway, I'm going to get back to taking this piece of writing and then transforming it into issue number 7, which details that concept more fully. Peace and love, and stay crispy, my friend.